Have you ever wondered what might be hidden behind a mirror? In The Presence in the Mirror, we meet Laura, a young woman who, in search of her first home, comes across an old Gothic residence full of mysteries. By ignoring the warnings about the house and its unsettling Victorian mirror, Laura finds herself trapped in a web of supernatural events that make her question her sanity. Prepare yourself for a journey of psychological terror where every reflection reveals dark secrets and a presence that watches, waiting for an opportunity to escape. The Presence in the Mirror. Laura always dreamed of living alone, having her own space. But after exhausting weeks of searching, she found only one option within her budget: an isolated house on top of a hill, old but charming with a Gothic touch. The view was incredible, and the interior seemed to have been recently restored. Excited about her achievement, Laura decided to ignore the rumors about the place, stories that the house carried a supernatural presence and that no one had ever managed to live there for long. On the day of the move, everything went smoothly. Laura unpacked boxes and began organizing her belongings, but one thing always caught her attention: a large mirror with an intricately carved wooden frame in a Victorian style that occupied almost an entire wall of one of the rooms. It was a mirror that surely wasn't in the original floor plan. It had an air of grandeur, with an almost suffocating presence. On the first night, while exploring the house, Laura decided to go to bed early, tired from all the work. When she turned off the lights, she noticed that the temperature in the room seemed to drop drastically. Instead of being comfortable, the silence became oppressive. Then she heard the first sound, a faint scratching as if something was slowly moving. She turned on the light but found nothing. Perhaps it was just the wind, she thought, but the sound continued to echo as if coming from inside the walls. That night she had a strange dream. In the mirror, a blurred figure stared at her intently. She felt the chill of the presence but couldn't wake up. It was as if she were trapped inside her own dream. When she finally woke up, it was already morning, and she found the mirror in front of her bed, staring back at her. Something in her reflection seemed different, as if the mirror wanted to capture her attention. Days passed, and the nighttime noises intensified. Laura began to hear dragging footsteps during the night and whispers echoing from inside the mirror, but everything seemed to vanish when she turned on the lights. One day, while cleaning the attic, she found a dusty box in the corner of the room. When she opened it, she found an old diary with yellowed pages and shaky handwriting. The diary belonged to Helena, a former owner of the house. In the first pages, Helena spoke of her solitary life and how she began to hear strange noises at night. But as she progressed, the accounts became increasingly dark. She talked about the woman in the mirror, who appeared during the night with a cold, vacant stare, she watches me from the other side of the glass, her eyes follow my every move. At the end of the diary, Helena wrote her last entry: "If I don't leave this house, she will come for me." After this sentence, the diary abruptly ended. Disturbed, Laura began to observe the mirror more closely. She tried to avoid her reflection, as she felt a growing discomfort, as if something was always watching her from within. One night, she woke up in the middle of the night, sensing that someone was standing next to her bed. She glanced at the mirror and saw a subtle movement. It seemed that the figure in the mirror had changed positions, staring at her more intensely. Facing the figure, she noticed that her own reflection was smiling maliciously, even though she knew she wasn't smiling. Sleep paralysis consumed her, and she couldn't move or look away from the mirror. She felt the cold sweat on her skin and the muffled sound of her own breathing echoing through the room. As soon as she finally managed to look away, the figure disappeared, but the feeling of discomfort remained. The next day, Laura, determined to unravel the mystery, visited some of the oldest residents of the village and briefly shared what was happening. One of the villagers, an elderly man named Alfredo, looked at her with concern and said, "You found the mirror, didn't you? That mirror brings the spirit of Helena. She has been trapped in it for years, waiting for someone to take her place." Laura tried to laugh at that, but Alfredo's serious gaze stopped her. He continued, "It happened to me too many years ago, but I managed to leave before it was too late." He recommended that she leave, warning her that the more she looked into the mirror, the stronger Helena's presence would become. That night, Laura decided to place a chair in front of the mirror and face it once and for all. She sat down with a lantern and observed every detail of her image. But gradually the figure began to look different. The reflection took on a pale aspect, and its eyes seemed filled with hatred and despair. Laura tried to look away, but suddenly she felt as if she were being pulled into the mirror. The reflection began to move on its own, and Laura felt an invisible force holding her, as if she were being sucked into the mirror. At the moment of greatest despair, she heard a soft whisper, "Now you are mine." The blurred figure on the other side reached out its hand, and in an instant, Laura saw her own face reflected in the mirror, but now with a dark, empty gaze. Desperate and exhausted, Laura decided she needed to get rid of the mirror. The next day, she sought help in the town and hired an antique dealer to remove the mirror and sell it as quickly as possible. But the night before its removal, the presence became more aggressive. Laura woke up to the sound of footsteps in her room and saw the figure, this time out of the mirror, walking toward her. In a mix of terror and desperation, she grabbed a hammer and ran to the mirror, smashing it to pieces. The mirror shattered into millions of shards, and Laura heard a deafening scream echoing through the room until it faded completely, but when she looked at the shards of glass scattered on the floor, she realized that each piece reflected the woman's face, eyes filled with hatred and lips twisted into a macabre smile. After destroying the mirror, Laura thought she was free from the curse. But in her mind, Helena's image continued to haunt her. She tried to resume her life, but in any reflective surface, from the glass of windows to puddles in the street, she caught glimpses of Helena's face, always watching her, always smiling, as time went on, the neighbors noticed that Laura had started to change. She no longer left the house, and on the rare occasions she was seen, she nervously looked at any reflective surface. Eventually, one of the neighbors found the abandoned house, but with the mirror restored, leaning against the wall, reflecting a figure, a woman with an empty smile. A dramatic ending shows the image of a broken Victorian mirror, with shards of glass scattered across the floor. Each shard reflects different expressions of Laura, fear, despair, and determination. In the background, moonlight streams through the window, casting unsettling shadows. Suspenseful music fades as a soft whisper echoes, "Now you are mine." The scene slowly fades to black, and the title, "The Presence in the Mirror," appears on the screen, followed by an invitation for viewers to leave their comments and subscribe to the channel for more mystery stories.